نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وراودته التي هو في بيتها عن نفسه وغلقت الأبواب وقالت هيت لك قال معاذ الله إنه ربي أحسن مثواي إنه لا يفلح الظالمون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions one very great imtihan and examination which Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam was afflicted, was tested with, and how Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam passes examination with flying colors. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the desire of women in every human being, a sexual desire, and Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam was a slave living in the house of a certain person. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the way the words Allah ta'ala used here, the one in whose house Yusuf alayhi salam was, Allah ta'ala did not use the woman's name, but Allah ta'ala wanted to show the severity of the test which Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam faced. He was in her house, in her domain, a place where she had complete control. She had all the advantage against him and he was completely helpless. And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned her house. It's supposed to have been a reminder for her that, you know what, I am living with my husband here, and my husband had commanded me to live with Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam in a dignified manner. But unfortunately, the same house which she had done, her lust and her evil desires, it led her to breach her duties as his wife and the guardian of the young man. It's such a wrong thing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that woman in whose house Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam was living, she made an effort to lure him, to fulfill his desire, to try to fulfill her desires with him. And what did she do? She shut the doors, وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ, and she very tightly, she closed all the doors. And she told Yusuf alayhi salam, Hayta lak, come. And you, she said, referring to you, O Yusuf, you come to me. So immediately Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam said, Ma'ad Allah, I seek the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Innahu Rabbi ahsana mathwai can have two meanings. One meaning can be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is my Rabb, my creator and sustainer, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has looked after me in a very beautiful way. Or it can refer to your husband. He is my moral instructor, he is my benefactor, and he has accommodated me in a most kind way. And remember, innahu la yuflihu dhalimun, those people who are wrongdoers, they will never be successful, they will never succeed in life. So anyhow, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this. The ulama say that the severity of the test we can understand that when Zulaykha, she was firstly, they say 13 different aspects there were that contributed to the severity of the situation. Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah has mentioned a few. I've summarized here. One thing is Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, normally every human being has got a natural inclination towards women, which can be as strong as a starving person, how he goes for water. That's how the natural inclination. And so Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, one was that there. Then second thing, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam was young, at an age where normally it's much more difficult to control your desires. A person is an old person, his desires are much less. But even though the desire remains within a person, but Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam was at young age. Then thirdly, he was a single person. He had no outlet to relieve his desire. One is a person who is married. It's much more easier for him. He's got a wife. But Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, so he was young, he was single. The natural inclination is found there. Then number 4, he was in a foreign land, where the compulsion to fulfill one's desire is much more difficult to cope with than when you're amongst your family and friends, because in your own town, the story can come out, you can be embarrassed, disgraced. Yeah, nobody knows you at all, you're the only person, and now for a person to save himself is much more difficult. Then the other thing is number 5, that Zulaykha herself, she was a woman who possessed beauty and status, and that is enough to entice a man, as a woman of wealth, a woman of status. Then 6, Zulaykha never hesitated or rejected him. Normally when a woman hesitates or she rejects, a man is always frightened. Perhaps the man, she'll disgrace me, embarrass me, she'll go and tell somebody about me. But yet a woman, she's not rejecting him, she's not hesitating. In actual fact, number 7, they say she's the one who initiated, she's the one who demanded, and she put all the effort in there. And وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ, she closed all the doors. Some ulama have the opinion that closing the doors was like there were 7 different doors, and each of the doors she closed all of them. But Hazrat Tanvi rahmatullah has given a better explanation. He says there were some doors, whatever amount of doors there was, but most likely it seems like the doors were around. That means it must have been a very big room, like how in the king's houses you get very big, huge rooms. And so she must have had a very beautiful, the Quran Kareem is making an ishara, a sign towards the beauty of the place, how huge and big it must have been. So it must have been a beautiful place. She must have designed it, put it very attractive, put some beautiful fragrances and scents so she can entice Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. Then she must have dressed up also very beautifully. And the other thing is that so So this is the next one, that she's the one who is initiating and demanding and putting in all the effort. Then number 8, he was in her house, under her authority and power, facing the risk of punishment if he did not concede to her wishes. If he did not fulfill her desires, he can get punished. Then there was no risk of her damaging his reputation, because she was the one inviting him. And she had locked all the doors, she had dismissed all the people who may have noticed. So this was also another factor which made it even more difficult. Then number 10, he was close to her already, familiar with her. He lived in the same house with her, and he could be with her openly without any risk. And this is one of the strongest motivators and things which pushes a person towards zina. A person, for example, is living, you just see one woman once in a lifetime, you walk past her, there's not so much of force or something which will compel a person to commit zina. But if you're working with a person every day, the woman who is working in your shop, your secretary, somebody who is close to you, so all the time you are working together, you are traveling together, now the desire of zina becomes much more in a person, because you can become familiar with a person. Here Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, for a couple of years he's living in a house, and so you are so familiar with her, close to her, and nobody will ever suspect you. Even if the husband has to walk in, he's the worker in the house, he has to do his work. So this was also another thing. And then later on, Zulaykha, she sought the help of her friends, as you will read later on, to aid in seducing Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. And she also threatened to have him jailed and disgraced, and she was capable of both. And also later on we will read the husband, when he came to find out, he wasn't a person who never had so much of ghairat and feelings like which a man supposed to have, that this is my wife. Normally if somebody was trying to do something to your wife like that, you'll kill that person, or you'll make sure you get rid of him immediately. But he just said, oh Yusuf alayhi salam, forgive her, it's okay. And he told his wife, never mind, it's not a problem, it was a mistake you made. And he continued life like this here. So this is something which is against Iman also. So despite all of these factors, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam chose to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was not prepared to fulfill his desires. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions how severe the examination of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam was. And one important point which we learn from here also is that seclusion with a woman, it leads a person to many evils. Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam obviously was a slave. It was difficult for him. He was forced to live at the house because he was serving there. And Allah ta'ala saved Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam from her. He was spiritually pure and innocent. But the case won't be like this for other people. So therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given a command, or Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has given us a command, لا يخلون رجل بامرأة إلا مع ذي محرم. A man must never be alone with a strange woman unless a mahram male is present. A mahram means a family member who she cannot get married to, a brother, a father, a husband, a son, a nephew, somebody who's there. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, no man should ever be alone with a woman. However, if it is a mahram or somebody, then it's a different case. And Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu also narrates from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who's saying that لا يخلون رجل بامرأة إلا كان ثالثها الشيطان. Beware, whenever a man is seclusion with a woman, the third one is shaitan. Third one is shaitan. Once a person, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إياكم الدخول على النساء. Beware, do not go and visit women when they are alone in their homes. So one person amongst the Ansar said, oh Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what about the husband's brother? Can he visit his brother's wife? Alham. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Alham wal maut. The husband's brother is like death. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, the husband's brother is death. The brother-in-law is death. It means the harm which will come when some evils happen with the brother-in-law and sister-in-law is like a death has taken place in the house, like a janazah has taken place in the house. How much of what severity there is. Somebody passes away, we know how much of mourning there is. So when there is this, because a brother-in-law, sister-in-law, now they are also living in one house nearby, and they maybe nobody will have any doubt upon them because they think, no, they are family members. But the evils it can lead to is it will cause like a death in the house of a person. And how many cases we have of these things taking place? May Allah protect and save us. That is why one is just khalwat, to have men and women together, but to a greater extent family members. There is certain laws of hijab and parda between family members to also establish this in our homes, because it's also a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And here the evils which it can lead to is much more severe, because as we had mentioned, it's familiarity that people become used to one another. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect and save us from the evil of our nafs. And Allah ta'ala is in the Quran explaining to us that a person has to be very careful of this. The nafs is within a person, desires are within a person. The person has to learn to control himself, and the Shariat has given us many laws where there must be complete separation between men and women, and in this there is protection for our own iman, our own chastity also. Allah Ta'ala give us true understanding.